I grew up in the church. I've been taken to church ever since the first Sunday I was home from the hospital. I've had the privilege and opportunity to to visit a lot of different churches, to go to a lot of different places, and to see things, go in a lot of different ways. One drawback of that is sometimes I find myself being so familiar with what's going on that it doesn't impact me like it should anymore. A lot of times verses are referenced in sermons, or they read scriptures, and it's just, my mind immediately just fills in the rest of the blanks, and I'm kind of skipping ahead because I've heard this verse so many times, and so it loses some of its meaning. And so what I've been doing is I found a really fun thing on my phone. My Bible app has just tons and tons of versions that I never even knew existed. And so a lot of times I'll like to just take a verse that I know that it's familiar or a passage, and I read it in a version that I've never heard of before just to see what it says. And sometimes the novelty really helps me out with that. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to read a passage out of 1 Corinthians chapter 11. It's the Lord's Supper passage, but I'm going to read it from a version called the Message. So listen to us. I want to pay a special attention when we get to the end of it here. It says, "Let me go over with you exactly what goes on in the Lord's Supper and why it is so centrally important. I received my instructions from the Master himself, passed them on to you. The Master, Jesus, on the night of his betrayal, took bread. Having given thanks, he broke it and said, 'This is my body, broken for you. Do this to remember me.' After supper, he did the same thing with the cup. 'This cup is my blood, my new covenant with you. Each time you drink this cup, remember me.' What you must solemnly realize is that every time you eat this bread and every time you drink this cup, you reenact the words and the actions, the death of the Master. You will be drawn to this meal again and again until the Master returns. You must never let familiarity breed contempt." And that last part of the verse, "you must never let familiarity breed contempt," really got me. And it really got me thinking, because it's, how many times do we have something that's so familiar that we just brush over it and we're already moving ahead to what's next? Let's take this opportunity to not have this be something that's familiar, but to have this be something that compels us to come back and remember the sacrifice of Jesus. Because without that sacrifice, there's no reason for any of this. Let's pray.